Okay, I'm sorry. I don't really know what I'm doing with this. I don't even really know how to like create a video, but sometimes a topic for a video just speaks to you and you feel like you have to make it. And if you don't make it, then you'll go crazy. So here it is. I'm going to introduce to you the idea that I'm going to argue the reasons that the album Kid A in Radiohead is fundamentally and thematically the same as the 2013 animated masterpiece Frozen. So here are my points. For I, I just want to preface this by saying that this isn't going to be a compositional or instrumental analysis of Kid A, because I don't know what any of that means. But I listened to it quite a few times, and the music was like good, and so like I also watched Frozen, and I was like, oh my god, I love this movie so much. So I was like, okay, these two things that I love, how can I combine them? And then I realized that Kid A and Frozen are both about ice, because Kid A, the album cover, the cover of the album is frozen volcano mountains, and Frozen is called Frozen, and it's about an ice queen. Um, but for real, Kid A, Kid A. Okay, it starts off, and there's this being, named Kid A, and we don't really get a lot of information on who they are, and we're just asking, who is this person, who is Kid A, what's their story. But the word kid is only used a couple of times in the work itself, and later on in the song Idioteque, they say the line, not Idioteque, Morning Bell, they say cut the kids in half, which at first I was like, oh, it's just Tom York singing nonsense again. But then I remembered that he said in an interview that Kid A is what he imagines the first clone to be, which means that the line cut the kids in half is about clones. And when I think about clones, I think about the number two. What are two? There are two people in Frozen. There are two main characters. There are two sisters, Anna and Elsa. Both have the letter A in their names. One of them makes ice and is sad and lonely all the time. And Radiohead is a band for people to listen to who are sad and lonely all the time. I I like, was this intentional? Like, you have to ask yourself at a certain point, like, did they know what they were doing with this? Did the people who made Frozen listen to Kid A? Was this the inspiration? How is this legal, like copyright wise? How could they get away with this? I'm not sure, but I think I've discovered the next The Dark Side of the Moon and the Wizard of Oz. It's Kid A by Radiohead and Frozen. It all fits together. But seriously, I think that I do think that there are actually similarities between the two works. I think that Kid A is an expression of just isolation uh, from Tom York, and I think that and the rest of the band, obviously, it wasn't just him that wrote it, but since he's the front man, he's kind of the one I'm the most familiar with. But I think that I was thinking a lot about this album, because I wasn't really sure what I thought about it, because I had listened to it a couple of times a while ago, and once you listen to an album too many times, and you don't really think about it, you just listen to it, and you keep it on the background, and you listen to it over and over again. That it's almost like it kind of drains the joy from it, like the dopamine stops hitting after a couple times, and I stop remembering why I liked an album in the first place when you're just listening to it to have something catchy in the background. So I hadn't listened to it in a while, but I started thinking about it, uh, especially as someone who doesn't have any knowledge in musical composition and instrumentation or music theory. Is there any enjoyment I can still get from this? And is there any analysis that I can make of this work? And I think there is. I think that I have a perspective that can be valuable that I could bring to this. And so I started thinking about it, and I started dissecting, my opinion of it. And I started to realize that it almost functioned as a bit of a concept album, which was not something that I was immediately, uh, it's not something I immediately attributed to that particular album. When you think of a concept album, you think Tommy, you think The Wall, you think Good Kid, Mad City, and with that, there's kind of a clear cut narrative that it's trying to tell. But with Kid A lot of the stuff in it that can be considered a narrative comes from outside sources or thematic uh, through lines that you can find in the lyrics and even in the music part of it. But I think that it's very interesting the way that such a well constructed album can serve almost as an analog to actual narrative media like a movie or a TV show. It's my opinion that if any album is well made, that or even not well made, that you can make any album serve as a sort of a story. There's a narrative there that you can construct. I think that there are puzzle pieces in each of the songs, and there are through lines if an album works. And I think that you can kind of sew those together in your mind and make something satisfying out of it. um, but to be honest, when I first listened to Kid A, I didn't pick up on any, uh, themes to it. I just thought, oh, this sounds weird, but I heard it's good, so it's probably good. And I kind of left it at that. Um, but I think that once I started thinking about it more, I could pick up on a little bit more stuff. And I think that there's really something powerful to what it says about innocence, to what it says about the world around us. I particularly really love OK Computer as an album. It might be my favorite Radiohead album. I'm still a little bit undecided, but I think that album was very on the nose with its societal critique. It sort of read as an "I'm 14 and this is deep" manifesto. It's just like, oh, humans are machines and that's not good, and society. I still love the album. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very charming. I adore it, to be honest. But I think that there is something so different to what that was trying to do and to what Kid A was trying to do. Because if you look at the lyrics in OK Computer versus in Kid A, I, I think they're shockingly different. Like, sometimes it's hard to believe they were written by the same group of people. Uh, OK Computer, I feel like it is trying to tell a story, um, in its lyrics, and use them as a way to tell a pretty direct story. I mean, obviously, not everything is spelled out. I don't really feel there are characters. I don't even know if there's supposed to be any narrative continuity between the different songs. But I can have a if you just Google like the lyrics to any of the songs in OK Computer, I feel like you can read them and you can have a pretty decent idea of what the song is all about. But with Kid A, it is just like nonsense for like a lot of it. And I'm not using that to diminish it. I'm not using that word to imply that it's randomized. I think that that's not what the I don't think that that's what the I don't God, I can't talk. Um yeah, I'm not saying that it's randomized. I think that they used great intent behind all of it. But that is to say that it certainly is less cohesive. It's less conventional. I listen to it and I have no idea what it means, but that means I have to think about it for a minute, and I think that can be useful. Um, I believe for the song Kid A, the title track, uh, Tom York just pulled lyrics out of a hat for it. But the important thing, I think, is that he had already written the lyrics. He had already chosen things, so that means that the order of the lyrics might not be important, but the lyrics themselves still has passages that he wrote that he wanted to be included in the song, and I think that is different than just saying he was speaking gibberish the entire time. If you wanted to just screech the entire time, uh, that would certainly be a choice, but I feel like he would be comfortable doing it. No, he uses phrases that, I mean, certainly more so if you're British, which I'm very thankful I'm not, but you would probably hear in your day to day life, and you might remember hearing in conversations, and you can maybe imply some of the context that those words would be used in. And it really gives you this feeling of having a little small fraction of a bigger picture. And I think that's really important, and that's really immersive in sort of drawing us into the world of Kid A. That's something that I noticed that Aphex Twin's albums use sometimes, and I know that obviously Aphex Twin was a huge inspiration for Radiohead on Kid A, but sometimes there'll just be random conversations in the background of Aphex Twin's albums, or I should say specifically, I carry the album I Care Because You Do, because that's the one I listen to the most, and I'm not really familiar with the other albums, so I can't really speak to those. But it definitely reminded me of that a lot. It feels like you're just catching a glimpse of a bigger picture, and um, that's all well and good. But I think with the song Idioteque, great name by the way, I feel like that song really gives you the idea that there is something bigger going on with the narrative of the album, and the narrative of that song in particular speaks to a global catastrophe. Um, but only, again, it only gives you snippets of it. You don't really understand what caused it. You don't understand why it's happening. You don't understand how many, if any, people survived this. You don't understand any of that. You are just given frustrating and tantalizing glimpses into what any of this is all about. And again, most albums, I would say, aren't necessarily narrative focused. I mean, you can make a narrative if that's the tools you're used to using. You can construct a narrative out of any album, I believe, but that's not the goal for most of them. The goal for most albums, I would say, is to make good music, or at least commercial music. Um, obviously concept albums notwithstanding. But with Kid A, I think that they are trying to create something with it. And I do think that there is almost elements of world building to the song. And so I started thinking about what the narrative is. And even though I am almost completely sure that this is not what the creators of the album had in mind, I started, coming up with a plot, almost a story that it I felt could communicate what each of the songs represented. And this was just an exercise in seeing what this work meant to me. And as I started to create this narrative of isolation and desperation in the wilderness, I started noticing that it had a lot in common with the movie Frozen. And I think that that is funny, as I exploited the premise for, I don't even know if you could call it comedy in the opening. But I don't know if that's necessarily because Kid A has anything, if just anything, in common with the 2013 Disney animated classic movie Frozen, except for, there's ice on the cover of both, and they both have to do with feelings of isolation. Um, and both of their characters, like both of the works, have characters with A in their names. Other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of similarity, but I do think it's interesting in the way that when you're working with abstract narratives, a lot of the times you can piece them together with bits from movies that you are already familiar with more cut and dry plots or elements of your real life. And a lot of the times this can be um, this can be subconscious a lot of the times, I feel like. And so in a way, I'm lucky that I was able to notice that in whatever vague exercise I was doing, I was using elements from a movie that I don't even care about. I'm not passionate at all about the 2013 animated Disney classic film Frozen. I don't care about it at all. And Kid A is a work that I do care deeply about. I think it's really, really good. And I think it's definitely worth my time and worth some introspection just to think about what it means to me as a person. And I don't know. I don't know why I decided to make a video about it, but I did think, okay, I noticed something. Uh, might as well make a video, if anything, to sort of articulate how I feel about it, because I think that there might be something here. So if this video means anything to anyone, then I hope you enjoyed it. If not, I don't care if you leave a comment or like, do whatever you want. I'm not your father figure or whatever. I'm not your legal guardian. Um, so yeah, that's all I have to say. Bye.